Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, a rowdy Red Raider road trip reaction. Right now.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to see you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Always appreciate being your first listen each weekday on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. He's the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan, and today's episode brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free today at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege to post your job for free with LinkedIn Jobs. Terms and conditions apply. Chris, welcome back to West Texas. Great to be back with you. You heard Joey McGuire there just a moment ago say all things run through Lubbock, which includes an NBA slam dunk competition this weekend. But that's not what we're here to discuss today. I bet Joey McGuire had that on his mind when he said that. You know he did. It's on the short list. We're here to discuss a road through Morgantown, West Virginia that eventually led back to Lubbock and included a road conference win for Mark Adams and the Red Raiders. Chris, they keep the good times going. They keep the streak alive, but that's no small feat as far as context is concerned. They get a win away from United Supermarkets Arena, something certainly in conference play that's been very difficult to do so far this season.
As in, this was the first one. Yeah, I mean, that's it. Well, yeah, in league play. Yeah, that's right. Because the only other, I guess, true road win that you'd had was in Baton Rouge. So you had set yourself up, as we had talked about, and you'd put these wins together. You'd won 4 of 6 games. You'd had some quad 1 wins. We had that conversation, last week, and how meaningful those wins were. But you knew at some point you had to take the confidence, the rhythm that you'd had. The show had to go on the road, and you had to get some results maybe on the road. But so that was the challenge going to Morgantown. And look, make no mistake, West Virginia is in most bracket conversations right now. They are in. I think because of the result in Morgantown and you beat them, that they are a little more on the bubble than they were. But make no mistake, you just beat, according to everybody that does this stuff, an NCAA tournament team. And so this was an important game for West Virginia. Make no mistake, this was sold out. There wasn't a seat to be had in the old Coliseum. And I even had some folks from West Virginia go, I don't know why these people keep showing up because the product doesn't really warrant it. And I just laughed. I was like, no, but they are faithful and they were loud.
What else you doing in Morgantown? You going mudding?
And that's part of it. It's a great college town. I mean, because I think you're right. There's so many of these Big 12 cities that we go to, Ames, Manhattan, where it's just what people do. It's their social schedule. It's their calendar. But I didn't know necessarily what to expect because I'd only been there, I think, twice total. And in all the years I've been doing this, and you'd gotten out of Morgantown with a win. And now it's 3. And Mark Adams, as the head coach, is undefeated in Morgantown. No small feats at all.
Yeah, I like that little footnote for Coach Adams. And I do remember not too long ago, just the celebration that came with getting a win in Morgantown.
Yeah.
So don't take it lightly whenever you're able to bring one back, no doubt. And that's really one component. We'll get to some individuals, obviously, that stood out. And another recipe that if you gave it to me prior to the game, I'm kind of thinking, oh, okay, 4 from O'Banner, but don't worry, Tyson's giving you 27. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll wait and see how that goes. We'll get to this concoction that they're putting together to get the win, Chris, but I know it takes some certain things just to win on the road in general for whatever team, wherever you're playing. And I think in some ways it has to kind of begin with that even-killed type of approach, not getting too high, not getting too low. And I think going into this game, you had to kind of believe, hey, maybe this team has that characteristic, because obviously going through the winless stretch that you did and then putting together the wins on the other side of that, I think kind of spoke to the steady hand, if you will, or the even-keeled nature maybe of the team to remain resilient. And that's something I think that is going to come in handy on the road, hopefully again, as we'll get to looking ahead on tomorrow's episode. But whether it's Morgantown or anywhere else, this was a bridge that team had to cross. Road win in league play, and it takes a couple of special things to make that happen like they did.
Yeah, I think you touched on something too, because I think the fact that, and we'll get to some different individuals here, but I want to talk to you for a second about O'Banner, because you brought him up. I think if you tell me that he has statistically a non-impactful game, I guess I'll phrase it that way, and that you're going to get out with a win, I really question it. And I'd love to kind of, okay, well, tell me what else goes on here, because I'm not sure that I see a win there if Kevin O'Banner is really not a part of it. However, in some ways he was, because, look, I think Kevin O'Banner is a scorer. I think that's where we really look at how much he adds value to a team. If it's not scoring, it's on the glass. And look, they weren't going to really let him be a part of things over the weekend. West Virginia really looked to kind of lock him up, not give him many open looks. He only attempts 4 shots, Casey. Yeah. So it's not necessarily like he was forcing it, or it just wasn't one of those games for him.
Strange. Yeah, it wasn't a bad shooting night or something, or like, no, it was just kind of strange. And he had 8 boards. You're right, talking about other facets where it wasn't like a no-show, but just in that one category, you couldn't count on the point production.
And that's where I was going to go, because I think that he was a part of it. And I think that maybe I'm being Pollyanna-ish here with this comment. I don't know, but being around it, watching him be very mature and handling the fact that he wasn't being able to help his team much on offense, whether he wasn't getting looks or just not able to touch the ball, he's still in there at the very end of the game, and he's grinding away on the glass. He's guarding, doing some of those things, and he hadn't kind of mentally checked out. Sometimes you see guys that are used to scoring, and that's just kind of because, over the last, I think, 6 games, he had averaged, which, again, you'd won 4 of 6 here. He'd averaged 16 a game here. So this is kind of the exception, this game versus West Virginia. But to me, it was kind of a sign of, okay, is this team starting to figure some things out? And guys, your margin for error has increased here, because he doesn't have to carry you. He doesn't have to produce a 15 to 20 for you to win. There are other avenues to figure some things out. And again, West Virginia is not great, but they're a tournament team, and it's at their place, and they beat you the first time. All the things. So I just thought that was a positive sign that you were able to get this done without Kevin O'Banner kind of doing his thing on offense.
I think, you pointed out very well there as far as what he still was impacting down the stretch, the effort that was necessary to do that. And as a fan, even after 2 for 4 and a very light offensive day as far as point production, if he's the guy that needs to pull the trigger on a shot in the closing minutes, I'd be fine with that too, Chris. He's still that dude. So
absolutely,
it was just kind of an interesting day to see. But the other side of that is what you did get. And I think would have kind of seemed like, a pipe dream prior to the game. If you would have said, hey, don't worry about O'Banner's 4. Jalon Tyson will probably give you 27. I would have had a little bit of skepticism at that. I think I saw a list going back to last decade, 13 or 14, 2013, 2014, that is. There's like 5 dudes that have topped 27 points in a Red Raider uniform. A couple of those guys, Keenan Evans and Jarrett Culver, were like a handful of those moments. But Bryson Williams,
last year, yes.
Jamias Ramsey was on that list. So in some pretty decent scoring company if you're going to be topping that point mark. Let's get to Jalon Tyson. But first, today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. And if you're a business owner or a hiring manager for one, building your team is essential to your business's success. And that's why LinkedIn Jobs is rated number 1 by small business owners whenever it comes to connecting your business with those job candidates that meet your criteria. They'll help you quickly attract the most qualified candidates with open targeting tools that go well beyond just resume data. They'll use insights from your job post company and their 875 million member profiles to put your job post in front of only the most qualified people. So identify those qualified candidates with LinkedIn Jobs faster than with anyone else. It's why, again, small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs is going to help you find those candidates you want to talk to faster today by posting your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free today with LinkedIn Jobs. Terms and conditions apply. Let's get to Jalon Tyson, because his offensive night, Chris, I'm not saying it came out of nowhere, because the dude has been trending more and more towards consistent scorer. But this wasn't just a big scoring night for Jalon Tyson. This was a big scoring night, like I just alluded to there, for just about any Red Raider through a lot of different eras. What did you see clicking for him? And did you have any notion that this dude might be trending towards this kind of breakout heading into Saturday?
Yeah, I don't know if you envision a game like this. I do know that, look, there was some time off for these guys last week. I think that in that, time off, which you play the Wednesday, Saturday, Monday kind of rotation, and it's a lot in a hurry. But once you get through that Monday night game, then you're able to, kind of there's some days between your next game where you really can kind of decompress. And Mark Adams did a really good job of, I think, letting these guys get away from it last week before they kind of resumed and all that. I think in the midst of that, it was probably pointed out to Jalon Tyson more than once. Hey, look, the first time we played these guys, you were non-existent. You played 30 plus minutes. You recorded 1 rebound, not much to speak of on offense. You were just kind of there. And I think that he went into this game motivated. Did I envision a 27-point game? Absolutely not. But the thing is, sometimes he's a scorer. We understand this. I think that he's also a guy that, again, if it gets going a bit, it feeds. And I don't think that at any point he really forced it. I think that he did a really good job of hitting some of his open looks early. And then I'll tell you, one of the things that I hadn't seen a lot from him this year, he did a really good job on the break of just running to the rim. They usually tell the 5-man a lot of times, just rim run and put pressure on the opposition. But he did a really good job of just running to the basket on a fast break. So I think he's rewarded for it. I think by Pop Isaacs at one time, I can't remember who dropped him the other assist, but he just is able to finish right around the basket on easy buckets because his teammates are looking for him because he's in the right place and he's hustling. I don't want to. I think he went under a few screens, a few too many times for my liking, which allowed Eric Stevenson to have another good night. But offensively, I have no issue with because he was efficient. Just so I'm clear here, he was 11 of 15, and that's an extremely efficient night. A lot of times you'll see 11 for 24 if a guy gets 27 or something along those lines. But no, he was extremely efficient on offense, and I think he wasn't a quote unquote volume shooter. I just thought it was one of those games for him where the basket was, just as big as it could be, and he just dropped them in there. And you needed every bit of it, trust me, because West Virginia wasn't going away until the very, very end. 23 lead changes in this game. I mean, it was back and forth, and Jalon kept you in it. He never let you get away because West Virginia goes on this 11-0, and I told Haxton on the broadcast, when you get into that second half, the one thing you must avoid is that 11-0, 10-0, 8-0 run, and this place is going nuts, and you think, are you ever going to get it back? You give up one of those, sure enough, you call timeout, place is going nuts, and then you answer it a few minutes later with an 8-0 run yourself, and Jalon Tyson had a lot to do with that, so kudos to him.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really liked about this game, Chris. I mean, I loved seeing wins on some other days where we talked about, wow, kind of maybe not wire to wire necessarily, but you control a lot of the game. Like that's the way you felt against Texas. And down the stretch, you kind of keep them at a certain distance, you win the game. West Virginia, at one point, I think you were down 8 or 9, maybe was the biggest deficit. I don't know if it got to double digits, but then you had a really nice run yourself. You mentioned it, 23 lead changes, and West Virginia led for almost 22 minutes of the ball game, and you still find a way to come out of there with a win. And Jalon Tyson, obviously, best game as a Red Raider, really gave you an idea of what he can be as a scorer. And, yeah, I was marveling not only at the point production, Chris, but the fact that it's a guy that's taken 15 shots, played, 36 minutes. The number in the turnover column is 0. Mm-hmm. The number is 0. And really for the team at large, trending in a very positive direction there. But for a guy that is making his first run extended full-time wise in the Big 12 Conference, you just really like to see that. And for some others, obviously, as well contributing to that is you only have 12 turnovers as a team on the day. Chris, I want to get to this recipe here because the guys I think need to mention as a part of the changing recipe, obviously, Fardaws, Aimaq, Pop Isaacs back in the mix. I don't know to what percentage they are healthy guys, but they are 100% game changers at whatever percentage they are health-wise right now. So let's get the Aimaq, Isaacs, and the ingredients that were put together to result in this 78-72 win. But first, today's episode brought to you by Built Bar. You're looking for a delicious treat, but you're not looking for all the fat, all the calories. I got what you need. It's Built Bar. What makes them so good? For starters, covered in 100% real chocolate. You got it. Real chocolate. And they come in unbelievably delicious flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, or coconut almond. Not sure how they do it, but they taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better, they're good for you. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. Even better now, not only can you get them at BuiltBar.com, but you can get them at your nearest Walmart, your nearest Sam's Club. Get there today and get in on something that tastes great and is great for you. You can thank me later after you've tried your first Built Bar. So let's get the Aimaq, Isaacs, and the ingredients that were put together to result in this 78-72 win. I'd like to start with Aimaq because he had one of the more interesting nights of basketball to observe, or days of basketball to observe. The dude is 2 for 11 from the field, but walks away with a double-double, due in large part, Chris, to a 10 for 10 day at the free throw line. That is wrapped up in a nice bit of touch for a big man, whether it's passing, whether it's free throw shooting, touch around the rim offensively. That's one thing that I've really marveled at as far as Aimaq individually. You see the size and you wonder, all right, is it a brute force kind of game? Kind of anything but that, right? At this point in time, man, he's got vision and he's got some touch as well.
It was a bizarre game for him, yes, because I think that he would tell you he missed way too many, I don't want to say easy, but way too many looks that I guarantee you he would feel like he should be able to knock down around the basket, whether they were our tips or just kind of putbacks or just, hey, man, a post up, and he makes a move. And because keep in mind, you mentioned 2 for 11. He makes the last 2 of his field goals. He's a 0 for 9, okay? Right. And he makes the 10th and 11th attempt, and including one of those was like a hook shot off the glass, which I'm like, you can't defend that. And
hey, his game is all horse shots at this point in time. Remember the shot against Texas we described? Yeah. And he finishes 2 for 11, and then he finished hot. Believe it or not.
Yeah, and you know, we get to the arena early, and the West Virginia folks were talking to me about their team and everything, and they had indicated, hey, look, man, you know, this Fardaws guy, he worries our guys, our staff, you know, he's a bit of a difference maker for you guys. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, you know, and I think this is what they were talking about, just because of it increases your margin for error again. And so my concern was, Okay, can he be a huge factor? Because I don't think we're looking at Fardaws even after yesterday. I don't think we're looking at Fardaws and saying, okay, he could go Bryson Williams on somebody, he can go Jalon Tyson on somebody, he can go for 20 plus, and you can just ride him. I don't know if we're talking about that kind of player. However, I do think he can be an absolutely a double digit guy every night out, and maybe approach this double that we're talking about now.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing he must do is he's got to avoid foul trouble. And there's a ton of fouls called in West Virginia games. There just are. I mean, keep in mind, West Virginia went to the foul line 35 times against you in Lubbock, Texas. And that's typically what happens in Morgantown. So I'm thinking, oh, goodness, how is this going to be called? But he's the guy that can't get into foul trouble because, if he's this X factor – and lo and behold, 40 seconds into the game, he picks up a cheap one. And I thought, well, damn, here we go. But he avoided all of that for the most part. And I thought it was the work he did on the glass. But really, in some ways, where you win this game is what the big fella did at the free throw line. 10 of 10. These were clutch. Yeah. These were vital for you in the second half. And it's one of the most unique, like, I don't want to say necessarily he played well because I don't know if he necessarily did. However, he was very effective and impactful. And I think that is what, his work on the glass and the free throw line, I think, is as big a reason as any that you won this game. And kudos to him, man, because he didn't really play that well. And yet he produced. And I think you live to tell about it. And that's why I include him in that recipe for winning, because it increases your margin for error. You don't have to have certain things that we must get, because we've talked about O'Banner didn't play well. I don't think Fardaws played particularly well, but it was impactful. And I'm telling you, 10 for 10 at the free throw line, I don't care who you are. That is big time, especially when you're on the road, and especially when you're having a hard time get them to fall around the basket, and he steps up to the free throw line and knocks them down. So big time performance out of Fardaws Aimaq.
Bubba Jennings had to love that. Yes. If I'm not mistaken, Chris, Fardaws Aimaq scored your final 8 points and 10 of your final 12 points. I think Davion Harmon had another bucket among those final 12, but that goes back to that resolve and that resiliency I was talking about earlier. As a team or individually, Aimaq's 0 for 9. I mean, it's a dogfight of a game, so certainly you don't want to be checked out. But it's just amazing to me that not only does he have to do some things for you in the final few minutes, but it's scoring after you're 0 for 9 and not really feeling like the bucket is much of a friend to you that day. It's not just like we were talking about with O'Banner earlier. Well, you hadn't had much of a scoring day, but, continue to battle on the glass and play defense down the stretch and help us get a win, which he did. With Aimaq, it's like, no, do the thing you haven't done so far today. Go ahead and get to the free throw line, knock down clutch shots, add a couple of buckets. I mean, it was just really amazing to see. The dude is fun to watch, and you can see why he was heavily pursued by so many who wanted him to be in their uniform. I just continue to think about what it could have looked like if you had had a little bit better luck from a health standpoint, Chris. But there's no doubt that he's going to be giving some opposing teams fits for as long as you have the opportunity to continue to play games. And I just hope that the health will continue to hold out and you'll have some good luck in that direction for Aimaq. Let's talk about the other guy that was among the walking wounded in Pop Isaacs, who we did see come off the bench as far as his return to action. Saw him play starter-esque minutes, obviously, and played the type of role that we have seen him playing. And, actually we saw, you mentioned the word efficient for Jalon Tyson from a shooting perspective. It was actually one of the more efficient nights of the year for Pop Isaacs, who contributed 15 on 6 of 10 shooting, 3 for 6 from beyond the arc, and certainly did not seem to have lost even a shred of confidence in his time away from the floor, Chris. I was glad to see him gunning as soon as he stepped out there, it seemed like.
Yeah, I would tell you, I can't speak to Fardaws or Pop and their percentages, but I think they're really close to being, close to fully healthy. Yeah. But again, when Pop hasn't played since, I think he plays against West Virginia, and the last time that he played was against West Virginia, was on January the 25th. It's really hard to just hit the ground running like he did, I think. And that's what's crazy about Fardaws, his debut back in Austin. His first game as a Red Raider, he goes for 12-5 and played, I think, 29 minutes in that one. And that's just very difficult to do. The sport's hard. The league is hard. And it's hard to just kind of, be in rhythm and be in shape and all the stuff that comes with it and be in the flow. But I thought Pop, he gave you – because, look, we talked about this late last week going to this, with this road trip. You look back at that first game, 50-15 bench scoring, okay, in favor of West Virginia. They just crushed you with their bench production. And to be fair, it's because their starters were terrible, but that's what Bob Huggins did. And so in this game, Pop is the one that comes off the bench, and he provides it. He provides the spark. And I don't know what Coach Adams will do going forward from a starting lineup standpoint. I kind of like Pop off the bench a little bit, because, again, you're going to finish with him. He's going to be in the game at the end. But I kind of like that subtle move of him coming in, because it creates a different dynamic. And I just think he can give you some of that, continue to give you some of that off the bench. And it's a pain for the opposition to kind of match up with it when they get into their bench a little bit, because the guy, he is a starter per se. But yeah, he just, his ability to create looks for himself from deep is starting to be fun to watch, because everybody knows he'll pull it at any time. He's not shy about it, and he can make his fair share. I mean, he heaved up an air ball, against West Virginia, and the fans are chanting air ball and stuff. But he's got amnesia. He's not bothered by it, and he's looking to get that shot off, and he'll shot fake and get you to jump out of your shoes, and then he'll step to the side and bury one. But yeah, 3 of 6 from deep, and it was fun to watch him be back. And now you kind of feel like, okay, now you got a few more pieces here at your disposal. Look out.
Yeah, and the air ball was totally on me. I'll just fess up to that at this point in time. I literally had just texted my Red Raider group text to buddies and said, I don't know what Pop Isaacs is getting at NIL money, but double it, and I'll be damned if he doesn't sell one wide right or whenever. So that's my fault, Pop, not your fault. Before we get out of here, Chris, shout out to Davion Harmon about the guy at this point in time. His transition aggression was on display once again, whether it was getting buckets at the end of it or distributing to some other guys. And I also thought Robert Jennings seems to be a guy that's finding some confidence, man, and finding here or there a few minutes where he can make an impact. I like the minutes you got from Jennings. Yeah,
they really preached, because you got worked on the glass against this bunch the first time. I think minus 18. And that was the recipe, Casey, is that you turn it over fewer times, you out-rebound them, and then when the game is still close at the end, I'm thinking you've done everything that you needed to do. You made a lot more free throws than they did, and I'm thinking, like, there's no way you can lose this game. If you lose this game, I don't know, it just may not be in the cards for you, just because, okay, out-rebound them by 11, 2 fewer turnovers. You make more free throws than they did. They didn't. The officials didn't just try to take over the game and give West Virginia every call, like happens far too often in that building. But Robert Jennings, with the 6 boards off the glass, I thought he did a really good job of just kind of, he only played, I think, 8 or 9 minutes, but again, they were key when Fardaws was resting, and nothing dropped off, especially from the rebounding standpoint. And again, these kids, like against West Virginia, you could tell them all you want. You can show them on film. You're going to get hit in the back. You're going to get pushed. You're going to get and sometimes they're not going to call it. I mean, Jimmy Bell, he pushes Fardaws Aimaq with both hands in the back on a rebound attempt. Officials don't say anything, don't blow the whistle. And it's hard to move a guy like Fardaws. I mean, what's he going, 260, 270, 280? Yeah. I don't know. But this is just what you get in that building sometimes. And so for these young guys, again, until you live through it or understand what you're getting into, you're just not really sure that you're going to be aware of it. But I thought Robert really didn't look like a fish out of water in this mix as well. And I thought he hung just fine. And, anyway, just another kind of key piece. And these kids are going to be better off for these experiences.
Yeah, like to see some of the defensive intensity again, and like to see some of these guys like Jennings or otherwise that as we get into these late stages of the season, seem to be making some progress, or covering some ground towards really being a piece that can produce for Texas Tech to whatever extent. So we'll be curious to see how they continue the momentum as they are on the road again. We'll get to setting you up for Red Raiders and Sooners on tomorrow's show, as that action will be coming to us from Norman, Oklahoma. And Chris, hope has been kept alive, my friend. I don't know if you're delivering that message prior to the games these days, but we all got to keep it up, right? Thanks for the time, and we'll get ready for another one on the other side.
Yeah, your net ranking went up about 8 or 9 spots. John Denver went to Texas Tech, and hope it is alive, man. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you guys for joining us once again on Locked On Texas Tech and making us your first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. We hope you'll make Locked On College Basketball your second listen now, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your one-stop college hoops shop that is Locked On College Basketball for your second listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. He's Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. We'll see you on the other side on Locked On Texas Tech.